Who's a Heretic Child by spacesapph1c. Chapter 6. What do we do with a drunken sailor? Summary. Away, hey, and up she rises. Regulus wakes up to his brother groaning beside him while curled in a fetal position. Last night, James and Remus had set them up below deck amongst the rest of the crew to retire for the evening. Rather than beds, each sailor occupied a cotton hammock hanging from the ceiling. Remus had mentioned that the hammocks would rock with the motion of the ship to offset seasickness. Seeing as Sirius is practically green, it seemed either he's an exception or Remus is a liar. Reggie, I've never felt worse in my life. Me! I've been beaten to near death more times than I can count, and this is significantly worse. The room starts to tip a little more as the ship turns and Sirius buries his head into his pillow with a loud groan, muttering, "Mercy." Just then, the cabin door is thrown open. Remus enters the room with slow, deliberate steps, making his way over to the brothers and doing a double take at Sirius's sickly state. "Is he all right?" he questions, and because Sirius is a drama king, he jumps at the opportunity to recite all of his grievances with their new sleeping arrangements. To his credit, Remus takes all of the compliments in stride. The man must have the patience of a saint. If Regulus hadn't mastered the art of tuning out Sirius's dramatics, he would have lost his mind ages ago. Actually, on that note, Sirius rounds on Regulus. How the hell are you not feeling like shit right now? It's a valid question. Sirius looks like he's taken a waltz with death himself, and Regulus feels fine. There's always the chance it could be a fair thing. His mother was a water nymph, so maybe that makes him indifferent to the lilting ocean waves? The more likely explanation, though, Sirius, you probably feel like shit because your head was slammed into solid wood no less than 12 hours ago. His brother scowls at the response, but he's still wrapped in a blanket like a swaddled infant with tendrils of black hair sticking out in every direction, so the look doesn't come across as very threatening. Remus, however, is frantically glancing between the two, funny brown eyes nearly bulging out of his head. "So, you were literally stabbed yesterday?" "Oh, was it?" Remus blurts. "Good and tight, gorgeous." Sirius winks at the pirate before continuing. "If anything, you should be worse off than me right now. I know it's hard to think straight with the minor brain injury, but you should know dizziness and nausea are the main symptoms of a concussion." "Whose brain is injured?" With the rapid back and forth, no one noticed when James entered the room mid-conversation. Regulus turns to face him and immediately averts his eyes, only to find himself focusing back on the sight. James is wearing a billowy macaroon tunic with the front so loosely laced he can see the expanses of the pirate's toned chest. Thankfully, Remus engages him in conversation about whatever it is Pirate needs to discuss, so he doesn't notice Regulus squawking. "You're drooling," Sirius taunts while staring him down with a far too smug an expression for this early in the morning. "There's no shame in it, little brother. Personally, I have already formulated a multi-step plan to get into Remus's hands." Without thinking, Regulus slightly smacks Sirius in the head, but quickly regrets the action, and his brother winces. Springing up from his hammock, he goes to examine Sirius's head, while muttering out frantic apologies. The tips of his fingers lightly graze a bump towards the back of his brother's head, which only spikes his concern. He turns to the other two in the room. "You wouldn't happen to have a medic on board, would you?" Maybe it's because Remus grew up as an only child, but he finds the way the brothers interact both odd and fascinating. They gravitate towards each other for comfort just as much as they ruthlessly bicker. Yesterday, some of the barbs he'd overheard them carelessly throw at each other were enough to make him cautious that it'd instigate a fight. Hurt feelings? Trigger the waterworks. But they didn't do that. They didn't do any of that. They'd laugh it off and then try to one-up the other in wit. seeing who would come up with the better insult. No hurt feelings, just familiarity and amusement. They know exactly where the other's boundaries are without needing to voice it. Sibling dynamics aside, Sirius and Regulus are captivating in general. They're scrambled puzzle pieces that Remus wants to piece together just to see the twisted resplendence of the full picture. Why did they run away from such a seemingly lavish lifestyle? What drove them to trust pirates of all people to bring them to safety? He intends to find out. While he knows Lily tasked them with helping the brothers adjust as a sort of punishment, he's thrilled to have a valid excuse to spend more time with them, especially Sirius. After the odd staring, after the odd start to the morning and a quick visit with Mary, she's not a healer by any means, but she knows the most compared to anyone else on the ship. He starts to show them the ropes. Alright, starting with the basics. Right now we're on the main deck, which gets the most foot traffic. As the group roams the ship, he continues to point out important features. He explains the rig of the ship, frequent tasks, and some common phrases they might hear while on board. I can't believe you big bad pirates are using words like hogswoggle, Sirius remarks as their tour comes to an end. Or scallywag, Regulus mutters. Har har, very funny you two. You're welcome for using my time to share all of that useful information, by the way. Speaking of taking up your time, what is it that you usually do? The youngest inquires. So far, Regulus only ever converses with Sirius unless he's digging for answers. I'm the ship's sailing master. I'm the one in charge of navigating the ship and knowing where we are. It's why Mooney doesn't sleep in the cabin with everyone else. The chart room is pretty much his bedroom, especially since he's saved up to have a bed in there. For whatever odd reason, Sirius whips his head up at the revelation, not dissimilar to a dog seeing a bone. You don't sleep in the cabin either, Regulus observes. James is quartermaster. His ranking and the fact that we have the space means he gets his own room as well, Remus answers. Sirius hums while staring Remus down with a contemplative gaze before James steals the brothers' attention back again. Now that Mooney's finished the rundown of the ship, how about we start your training? This is ridiculous. When James mentioned that he and Sirius would need training, Regulus assumed they'd be doing something practical like learning how to tie knots or hoist the sails. Apparently, James deems hand-to-hand combat as more of a priority. Makes sense to an extent, he supposes, if they are to run into any trouble. It'd be good to know he and Sirius can hold their own, rather than relying on others to stay safe. But as he watches his brother clumsily handle a sword with so much carelessness, Remus has to step up behind him to demonstrate how to adjust his grip. He can't help but feel this is a waste of time. Sirius was able to handle every common type of sword with ruthless precision by the time he was 13. Back home, they considered him a prodigy in pretty much any form of combat. He'd even been responsible for training some of the palace knights. And now here he is, faking incompetence to flirt with a pirate. Your brother might be a lost cause, James mumbles beside him with a frown, but let's see what you can do. James struts ahead to stand a few paces ahead of him. He holds up his saber, appearing as confident as ever. Earlier, he'd picked out a rapier as Regulus's weapon, since it's light as hold. Regulus silently goes along with it. If James wants to make assumptions about his combat ability, he isn't going to stop him, not while it can come to his advantage. And wouldn't it be hilarious for overconfident James Potter to have his ass handed to him during his own lesson? Regulus twirls his sword in a figure eight before settling it in his grip. James scrunches his brows together in confusion, eyes flitting down to watch the intricate hand motion. On guard. James clearly isn't expecting Regulus to run up to him and make the first strike. Despite the shock, he still manages to block the hit, albeit just barely. What the hell? Regulus cuts him off with another strike, and now James is starting to take him seriously. By no means is he a prodigy like Sirius, but he was still forced to attend lessons. He'd learn to use speed and intellect to his advantage. Doesn't matter how much bigger or stronger your opponent is if you outrank them in strategy. With each parry, Regulus discovers more about James's fighting style. He relies on force, but is still agile enough to evade Regulus's faster strikes. He's obviously skilled in dueling and wields his sword with a gracefulness that comes with years of practice and experience. He also tends to favor his right side. Regulus lunges at his next opportunity. By the time James realizes his mistake, Regulus is already up next to him, grazing the tip of his sword to the hollow of the pirate's throat. How'd I do? He breathed out. And yeah, maybe he's being a bit cocky, but he can't help that he loves to win. There's an odd expression on James's face, and for a second Regulus feels his own smirk falter. Maybe he genuinely upset the older man. Regulus takes a step back to break the tension. With a sharp inhale, the look flickers out of existence, promptly replaced by the pirate's usual carefree grin. Pretty good, but now that I know you can handle a sword, I won't go as easy on you in the future. Whatever you say, Potter. Wait, how come you can fight perfectly fine and your brother can't? Remus calls out. The pair are standing off to the side, along with a few other crew members who have stopped to watch them spar. We both took lessons as kids. Sirius stopped attending pretty early on, though. He thought it was unnecessary. True. Sirius stopped lessons when they realized no teacher could offer any training that he hadn't already mastered. He keeps that to himself, though. His brother shrugs off the incredulous looks sent his way. I just never had an interesting enough teacher, Sirius states. But you'll be able to help me, right? Minnie? The latter goes scarlet as Sirius continues to shamelessly flirt with the man. Before Sirius can say anything too crude in Remus's ear, because that's always where Sirius's mind goes when given time, Captain Evans appears on deck, alerting everyone to start preparing for dock. There's a frenzy of people swarming around, following orders. Regulus is about to ask what they can do to help when the captain calls the four of them over. According to Captain Evans, they are stuck running errands this trip in order to make up for last time's fuckery. He's not entirely sure how he and Reggie got dragged into it, but he's not complaining. Once they dock the Valkyrie, the four of them start off towards the heart of town. The morning market is lively with townsfolk flooding the streets, filling it with cheerful chatter. The ambience is vastly different from Nocturne's unsavory atmosphere. In fact, Sirius hasn't managed to catch a glimpse of anything nefarious since stepping foot on Gryffindor soil. They dart from shop to shop, buying food, provisions, and an absurd amount of alcohol. It takes a few trips back and forth to the ship, but by early evening, James, who has been reading off a checklist, finally declares that they've gotten everything. Beside him, his brother is looking about as exhausted as he feels. Despite the hell it gave him last night, his stomach sounds absolutely divine right now. Now to get you two sorted out, Remus announces. Sirius realizes that they've come to a stop in front of an aged brick building, with vines trailing up the cracks in the stone. A wooden sign hangs above the door with the inscription, Fleas Market, in bold red lettering. Through the shop windows, Sirius sees they mostly sell clothes. Sirius knows he dresses well, so he hides none of the indignation in his voice when he sneers. You trying to say something about my clothes, Lupin? Remus slowly eyes him up and down before deadpanning. You're dressed like a spoiled rich boy. Slander! He's dressed like a rich boy with taste. There's a huge difference between having money and class. You both need proper sailor's attire if you're going to be working aboard a ship for the next 3 weeks, James helpfully adds in. Sirius looks over at Reg, finding the green eyes are already staring back at him. His brother offers a simple shrug of the shoulders before walking ahead into the shop. James immediately trails after him. Interesting. Leaving Sirius and Remus to enter last. The bell chimes when they step in, and the first thing he notices is that behind the main counter is an older couple, already engaged in conversation with James, while Regulus stands slightly to the side, wide-eyed and blushing furiously. The woman behind the counter glances up in their direction and allows a bright grin to light up their face. "Oh, Remus! Come here, it's good to see you again." Remus rushes over to greet her with a hug. The way he has to hunch over to accommodate for his height is quite endearing. "And who are these two?" the older man questions, looking between the brothers. Now that Sirius is looking at him and James side by side, the pieces are clicking together. The man is basically a copy of James, except with salt and peppered hair, grey stubble, and smile creases in the corners of his eyes. He's quite handsome. "Ma, Pa, this is Regulus and Sirius. They just joined the crew." "Sirius, Regulus, I introduce you to Effie and Monty Potter." "Well, boys, you've chosen a great crew to sail with, though I may be biased in saying so," Effie declares. She has the same round chestnut-coloured eyes as her son. "The Valkyries used to be captained under me before I handed it down to Lily." "You didn't pass it on to James?" Regulus asks. "Oh, heavens no. The Valkyrie is only ever captained by women. Besides, our Jamie here has never wanted to be captain anyhow." "Nope," James comments, popping the pea. "Anyways, Regulus and Sirius here need proper sailing attire. Oh, and we also need more ammo," he finishes. Effie clasps her hands together in excitement before pulling Regulus to her side. "We'll start with you, darling. Follow me." His brother looks a little frazzled, but follows her without question, as they make their way deeper into the shore. Monty continues his conversation with James, discussing what kind of ammunition they need to stock up on and how much. Sirius leans over to Remus before whispering, "They sell gunpowder at their clothing store?" The man lets out a low chuckle in response to Sirius's question, which is so distracting he almost misses the start of the man's answer. It's more of a one-stop shop for pirates passing through. They have map supplies, rope, carpentry tools, ammunition, you name it. Of course, to the public, it's a clothing shop for sailors, but those of us who know Effie and Monty's background know of the more illicit provisions they keep stocked up behind the counter. He hums in response, watching as Monty pulls out everything James had asked for, all whilst chatting and laughing with his son. It's interesting to see such a positive father-son dynamic. Before he can focus too much on that thought, he grabs Remus's arm to pull him along. Come help me pick out new clothes." The duo ambles about the shop. Remus picks out anything that seems practical, and Sirius picks up everything that makes the other man blush. In the end, they have a pile consisting of waterproof leather boots, a long heavy coat, and a tricorn hat to block the sun. Remus's pick. There's also a handful of low-cut, loose-fitting tunics, a red sash to tie around his waist, and some fitted pants. Sirius's pick. Monty rings them up just as Effie finally arrives back with Regulus, who's undergone a complete makeover. Sirius rushes over to his brother's side, trapping him in the tight hug and ruffling his dark curls. "Oh, look at you! You're the most adorable little pirate ever, my little Regikins," he jeers. Regulus isn't too thrilled about the sudden manhandling, and after a bit, Sirius decides he's annoyed his brother enough for the day and releases him. Regulus readjusts his clothes and tries to tame his messy curls, much like an annoyed cat trying to groom himself. Sirius grabs the most risque of his new wardrobe and darts into a fitting room. When he steps out to rejoin the others, he's quite pleased with the way Remus's eyes rove over him. To the side, James clears his throat, though he's smirking as he glances between the two. Ready to head back to the ship labs? They finish paying for their new purchases and bid the Potters farewell. Regulus stammers through his goodbye with Monty and avoids eye contact with Sirius afterwards, as if he doesn't intend to hound his little brother about the interaction later when they're stuck in the middle of the ocean with nowhere to run. The best part of leaving port is always the party that takes place the following evening. They make use of the few perishables they buy and put an extravagant meal together, fresh produce, slow-cooked meats, baked goods that haven't gone stale. To accompany the feast, they put a dent in their rum supply as they dance, sing, and gamble until the first signs of sunrise. A pirate's life for me. They are currently gathered around a long table in the mess hall. It's not often that everyone has the chance to congregate together in one space at the same time, so the opportunity is used to introduce the brothers to the rest of the crew. Regulus, overwhelmed from all the attention, had finished off 2 glasses of rum by the time they made it around the table. Now, everyone is scattered throughout the room, animatedly talking over one another. Surprisingly, Marlene and Sirius have latched onto each other like long-lost friends, bantering and daring the other to drink more until their eyes are glazed over and cheeks are flushed red. Dorcas watches her girlfriend's antics with fondness before switching their rum for water. The two are so far gone they don't notice the difference. Two is left. Emmeline is shouting profanities as she throws a truly unfortunate hand of cards onto the table, alongside a pile of coins, which Alice swoops in to collect with a cheer. The two of them have been at it for nearly an hour now, and it seems Emmeline's winning streak finally catches an end. What mainly grasps his attention, though, is the group huddled at the centre of the room. Remus plays a tune on a harmonica beside Regulus. Regulus, who has a fiddle and is playing by ear, whilst the rest of the group sings and claps to the beat of Wellerman. Usually Mary is the one to play the instrument, but she seems content to sing the lyrics alongside Lily and Alice as they twirl around each other with linked arms. James watches Regulus's nimble fingers dance across the fingerboard of the fiddle as he sways to the music. Or maybe he's swaying because of the gorge. His dark hair spills over his closed eyes, and James has to fight the urge to walk over and brush the stray curl aside. But then the song switches, and Remus plays the low beginning notes to Drunken Sailor, and James is helpless but to join in on the fun. He slams back the rest of his drink and dashes over to Regulus, snatching the fiddle from his hold and handing it off to Mary before grabbing the boy by the crook of the arm and dragging him to the centre of the room. Regulus seems startled at first, but as he clasps one hand in James's and the other latches onto his shoulder, a wide grin spreads across his face. "May I have this dance, love?" "Seems you've made the choice for me, Jamie," he lilts. His heart skips a beat. The two dance with the rhythm, James taking the opportunity to dip the other, twirling him close in time to see as he throws his head back in laughter. It really isn't fair how beautiful he is, not to mention the new clothes he's been given this morning. A thin, white poet blouse sits on his lithe frame, cinched by a black laced leather corset. The top is paired with dark fitted trousers and black leather boots that come up to his knees. James has been ogling the other's slim waist and lean legs all day, to say the least. It's making him think indecent thoughts. Regulus catches him staring, and for a second they both pause, breathing heavily and leaning into each other. James squeezes Regulus's hips, pulling him closer, letting his gaze down to parted, pillowy pink lips. And then Sirius and Marlene crash into them from each side. Way, hey, and up she rises, early in the morning. The duo sing off tune. Sirius and Marlene each have an arm thrown over Regulus as they uncoordinatedly sway back and forth. The song comes to an end, and with it the group decides it's time to start retiring for the night. Dorcas is struggling to carry a drunken Emmeline off to bed, so James steps in to sling an arm under Marlene as they make their way towards the cabins. Sirius leans more into Regulus with each wobbly step, cooing about how his little Reggie has grown up so fast. Marlene looks over at the brothers before squinting and throwing herself out of James's hold, wrapping an arm around Regulus to closely examine his face. The trio almost fall over with the sudden added weight. "Why are your ears pointy?" she slurs, while tugging a black curl down and watching in fascination as it springs back up. James drags the girl back to his side, but after paying closer attention, he sees that she's right. His ears are pointy. Regulus whips his head over to them. Green eyes were wide and panicked. It's because of the incest, Sirius says matter-of-factly. His volume is a little louder than needed for a conversation between the four of them, but doesn't seem to notice or care. Our parents were cousins. Can you believe that? Sick freaks. Now Reggie has pointy ears, and his growth is stunted. He finishes the little monologue with a dramatic exhale as if the whole thing is quite tragic. Serious? His brother seethes. Sorry. He's quite insecure about it. He finishes apologetically. Marlene is nodding along with closed eyes as if it was the most understandable explanation in the world. Though shocking, James doesn't question it. He's heard of nobles practicing all sorts of odd traditions back in Slytherin. They finally reach the cabins, and the second he drops Marlene onto her cot, she's out like a light. Sirius puts up a fight when his brother tries to get him into his hammock. It's uncomfortable. I can't sleep in there again. It's the hammock or the floor, Sirius. Where's Mooney? Hey, why do you call him Mooney? He eyes James suspiciously. He should be my Mooney. Regulus steps away in that moment, allowing Sirius to slump down onto the floor without the extra support. What am I going to do with him? The younger huffs out in exasperation. Sirius stubbornly remains on the floor, going slack when James tries to pick him up. There's no way they're going to be able to safely lift him into his cot. You know what? If he wants to see Remus so badly, let's just take him there. Remus is just settling in for bed when there's a sudden knock at his door. Actually, it was just one knock, with a bang that rattled the wooden frame. He's about to blow his lamplight out and ignore it when the door swings open anyway, and three figures stumble into the chart room. Remus, we brought you a surprise, James sing-songs. He's gonna kill me. He's gonna kill him. Before Remus can act on his sudden homicidal plans, a body slams into him, knocking him back over onto the bed. When he gets his bearings, he realizes Sirius is settled on top of him, straddling his lip with a doughy grin on his face and a flush high on his cheeks. Oh, Mooney, there you are, Sirius exclaims. And look, you've found a bed. This will do quite nicely. Much better than a mangy old hammock. Regulus interrupts his brother's rambling. Sorry, Remus, he refused to go to bed in his hammock. So you brought him to me? Sirius is now fighting to throw off his boots, falling all over the side of the bed and nearly kneeing himself in the nose in the process. James winces at the scene and starts to back out of the room, grabbing Regulus's hand to pull him along. James? He warns. The other lets out an exaggerated yawn. Well, I think it's time we all get some sleep. We'll see you in the morning, moon pie. And with that, the two hustle at the door. The audacity! When he turns to help Sirius, he finds that the other man has successfully thrown off his shoes and is resting peacefully under the covers. Inky waves of hair sprawled across his pillows. The sight makes a smile tug at his lips. He tucks the blanket up to fully cover the man before turning to douse the light at his bedside. Finally, he curls into bed, allowing the heavy weight of exhaustion to settle over him. Okay, that's the end of the chapter. Oh, it's so silly. I love them so much. I love when characters get drunk. It's so funny. I love how early on it is. It's like, you brought him to me? Why the hell? And then just like, yay, I'm moving. I love that. Also, I I cannot help it. I just burst out laughing there. When the scene where Molly notices the pointy ears and she's like, why do you have pointy ears? And Sirius full of like incest. Oh, it's so silly. Okay, I love this chapter so much. But tell me what you guys thought of it in the comments, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.